Timberline Resources in the news today. Timberline trades as TBR on the Toronto Venture Exchange, TLRS on the OTCQB in the States. As they report their final 2020 drill results from the Eureka Gold Project in Nevada. Here to run through the results, CEO Patrick Highsmith. Patrick, appreciate you spending the time here. I'm sure a pretty busy day for you. I know something you've been waiting for a long time. You finally got those 2020 results. Please run through the highlights here for investors.
Yeah, good morning, Rob, and thanks for the opportunity to talk about these numbers. As you say, we've been literally waiting months for them, but this is one of those releases where the numbers just don't do it justice. What we did today is we released the results from the three core holes of our 2020 drill program, and this wrapped up in December. And they were big step outs from the main Lookout deposit. The color of these holes ranged from sort of 200 to about 450 meters east of the resource. So these were true exploration holes. And so we knew we were doing exploration out here east of the resource. And frankly, Rob, we just didn't drill them deep enough. We did get a lot of sniffs of gold and silver, and I'll talk about some of the geology around that. But we didn't hit any of the higher grade runs that exceeded our cutoff grade for reporting. But really quite far from a dry hole. There's some great geology and geochemistry here. We had runs of like 7 meters in one place, 16 meters in another, about 13 meters in another, of gold and arsenic and antimony anomalies that are just what you want to see when you're sniffing around a Carlin type deposit. But they were lower grade, but they were definitely showing us some good gold. And then in a few spots, we got some silver rich mineralization. There was like a 26-meter run, a 16-meter run at the bottom of one hole, and a 40-meter run at the bottom of another hole that was silver with lead and zinc associated with it. So the takeaway for us on these holes is that we drilled into the top of a mineral system, probably a couple of overlapping mineral systems actually. And so some of these drill holes, these results that I mentioned there, Rob, are typical of Carlin type stuff. You have some gold with arsenic and antimony, but some of these silver dominated intervals I mentioned, they're more indicative of silver lead zinc mineralization, probably more like what Eureka was known for in the late 1800s. They're called carbonate replacement deposits, or CRDs. Now, that is good evidence that we might have a CRD style system down there or nearby along strike when you see this sort of halo of numbers like that. And of course, that's interesting because many of the big Carlin type deposits are actually overlapping with earlier styles of base metal mineralization. And as we wrote in the news release, that's exactly what happened up at the Ruby Hill mine, about 12 kilometers north of us, where Homestake and Barrick produced about 1.2 million ounces historically. And there, the Archimedes deposit, it's closely associated with that lead, zinc, silver mineralization. So, of course, we also have other evidence that we presented in February that there's a bigger system down there. The IP geophysics did show a huge IP anomaly at depth, and there's a large body of some chargeable minerals down there. Typically, that might be pyrite and graphite, both of which are good indicators of Carlin type systems. So we're pretty happy about getting some smoke in these holes. And there's another aspect of that. Here we were half a kilometer east of the known deposit, and the idea was to drill through these younger volcanic rocks that cover the sedimentary rocks, and of course there's some younger sedimentary rocks on top too that are on top of the favorable host rocks we know about from the Lookout deposit just back to the west there. And as we drilled down there through those covering rocks, we found a couple of faults with this drilling. And those faults down drop the host rocks that we're chasing, making them deeper than we'd anticipated. So we put a cross section in the news release. Your audience can see that. Encourage them to have a look at that because that shows you how these rocks have been down dropped. And the rocks we were chasing, if you're looking at that cross section, the ones that host the good stuff at the Lookout deposit, they're still down there. Most likely that's at the base of the Dunderberg shale. Whereas with this drilling, we just got in the top of the Dunderberg. So those faults, another key indicator, you need to see a lot of faulting in these Carlin type systems, and because they provide the plumbing for those fluids to come up. So really, we're also kind of glad to figure out where these faults are, and that's pretty encouraging because that's where the fluids came in. And as the fluids come up there, the alteration likes certain kind of host rocks and sort of percolates out from these faults and sort of eats up the rock and often brecciates the rock. And that makes the plumbing that hosts our gold deposits. So we're a lot better off than we were thanks to this drilling, the geophysics we've done, as I just referred to, and these strong new developments behind our geological model, because we know now a lot better sort of where to go to look for those right conditions. And that's what the team's working on now, Rob, is pulling together the details for the next round of drill targets and building off those high grade intercepts that we reported in our December and January news releases from this program, so that later this year we can put the drill rig where we have the highest probability to continue adding high grade gold to the inventory there. And we probably won't forget about the smoke in these holes. As I said, it's pretty exciting geologically. But our next step there in this part of the area called the Graben zone will be to use that IP geophysics and this geology we learned to figure out the shallower parts of those anomalies to test that. And so that way we'll know where we can drill into the heart of that IP anomaly. Probably that's a little bit to the north or south from where these holes were collared. But most of the focus for 2021 will be back over there closer to the main part of the Lookout resource and kind of up and down that trend going north and south. And I think we'll be putting out another release, Rob. Maybe we'll be talking next week when we put out a release talking about the 2021 drill program.
Okay, we'll certainly look forward to checking back in then. Again, that's Patrick Highsmith. He's the CEO, Timberline Resources, TBR on the Toronto Venture Exchange, TLRS, OTCQB in the States. Again, Patrick, appreciate it. And we'll certainly look forward to checking back in when Timberline hits the wire again.
Thanks, Rob. Always good to talk about some cool rock.